Hello everyone, welcome once again. Our leader today comes with over 25 years of hardcore IT and cybersecurity experience in the banking and financial services domain. From starting her career as a teacher in an engineering college to being the CISO of a leading credit commercial bank. She's a speaker at many national and international events, along with being a mentor to many. Let's hear about her journey to the top and everything in between. Please welcome Anuprita Daga, a senior cybersecurity professional and the co-founder of Elite CISO. Well, thank you, Anuprita, for joining us today.
Thank you, Roshan. Thank you for the initiative and thanks for the initiative, calling me, inviting me for this.
Absolutely. It's going to be a great pleasure having this conversation with you today. Well, coming to cybersecurity, Anuprita, now you've been a leader in the cybersecurity domain for quite some time, right? And we have a lot of questions for you. The first one being, what is the current state of cybersecurity industry in India and in terms of demand and supply?
So, I think last 21 months, if you see our pandemic, all businesses have changed, right? For example, if you see the banking has become, for example, branch banking to online banking, UPI. And now if you see even senior citizens also, nobody, there are hardly few people who will now be going to the branches, right? And everybody has adopted wallet, UPI and all. So I think life has become so easy, and if I ask the new generation that branch banking, they might just hate that, right?
Right.
So I think that the evolution, that wherever the technology evolution is, and so cybersecurity is going to be by default tag, because every technology has its own pros and cons, and whatever the controls what you implement in cybersecurity, obviously there is somebody to see how to break it, right? So there is police, but there is thief also, and thief is smarter than police. So I feel the demand perspective, like you never has somebody thought about Swiggy delivering the grocery, right? It's not. And if you see last, I think 15 months, there are so many cyber frauds which has happened. Like for example, in the first COVID, a lot of things were allowed only to sell online, right? And a lot of people were falling prey to it through phishing attacks. Their money was taken. People share OTP. So cybersecurity perspective, I think the next 10 years, at least 10 to 15 years, I think it is going to be continuous, because the technology is going to evolve. And as there is a movie like in 2050, you will have flying cars. And if you have flying cars, definitely you need to have a security. So I think this is going to be a default way of life, and we need to learn that life. So demand is going to increase actually. Next 15 to 20 years, definitely this is going to increase.
True. And is the supply space in place?
As I was saying that you have one solution, and the hackers are ahead of it, right? It is ever changing landscape actually. So the security what you had 10 years back or 15 years back, like having antivirus itself was a security, right? Having a firewall in the company or proxy in the company was legit security. Then afterwards, then application level attack started. Then you had web application firewall. Then people started guessing the passwords. Okay. Then bot managers started. And it is still at the stage that there are a lot of things which are being manual, and there is a lot of scope for automation, a lot of scope for predictive analysis. The way we have fraud prediction, business fraud prediction, I think security fraud prediction is also started, but I think that maturity is still there. So I think, and this is what we are talking as of now only about the banking and telecom, but now IoT is being adopted, right? Now there are the cars, what you have it in the last 2 years, every car is having the operating system, right? The key what you use to unlock the car, okay, that also has the memory processing, has the software, and wherever there is a technology, there is a cybersecurity. The buildings are going to be smart, the gates are going to be smart, the trains are going to be smart. So I think there is a huge market yet, that is yet to mature.
True. Well, that's a great upward trend. Now, talking about the banking sector, what kind of threats plague this industry?
So threats from two sides. Okay, one is the threats to the bank, right? So we generally categorize these threats as outside threats, insider threats, and there is a lot of outsourcing also which is happening. So we have supply chain related attacks also, and then there is a consumer which is a huge in number. And if you see, there are, I mean, if you follow the cybersecurity blog, there are a lot of phishing attacks which are happening because users are not yet aware about it. So these and every threat is having a different control, and within insider, you have different controls. For outsider, you have different controls, and for supply chain, you have different controls. Supply chain is that we outsource it, considering that we will get the business benefit, we'll get the business agility. But any kind of vulnerability which is residing through software, like recently, and it's a public data, but then through SolarWind, there were a couple of companies which were targeted. So I think the landscape perspective, cybersecurity is not that defined once and it's done, right? It is always evolving. As I said, softwares are evolving, the threats are evolving. You have RPA, then there's a attack on the robotics or the process automation. True. You have net banking, so there are different threats. You have mobile banking, there are different threats. Now recently, which is a recent adoption, which is QR code based payment, right? And based on QR code, there were so many people who were being targeted on this using a QR code payment. So I think the threat landscape perspective is that any organization who is defining on that, we need to have these categories, and within these categories, there are some literature also which is being available that we can refer it. And then there is how do we make it as a part of business process? How do we make it as a part of product offering?
Right.
So people, process, and technology. This is what the general term what we use it in the overall risk management or the business process term. And this has to be incorporated right from the basic to a level that we define the configuration, then we assess what is being done, which is the assessments what we do it. And the third part is that, and which is very important, is that even if we have put down everything, there is going to be a likely event, security event. How do we analyze that event? How do we contain that event? And how do we quickly mitigate it? So I think it's a huge framework and which has to be looked at it, because there is no single problem and no single solution for that.
Solution to that. So it's continuously evolving is what we say.
Yeah.
True. Now, organizations often employ third-party vendors for cybersecurity solutions. Now, how do we ensure that they are secure themselves? How do we establish that?
Yeah. So this is also a very, very tricky situation and very tricky, actually practical to handle it, right? One is that we have outsourced. So one is that our evaluation has to be very clear that, okay, what is the maturity of this company, right? So that is point number one. Second thing is that there need to be a complete transparency even from the process outsourcing perspective, that when we have a customer, okay, it is our responsibility also, because the customer also has some certain customers to whom we are providing the services, and we have to have a say. So one is that the way industry practices that, there is some frequent audits which we do it, frequent assessment we do it. There are some standards which can help us to define the standard framework within the organization. And recently, in last 2-3 years, there are some solutions which are being come out who monitors from outside, and it gives the effectiveness of the control and if any on the public environment. So again, it's another framework, like we call it as a vendor risk review framework, and where, right from engagement during the life cycle, how do we monitor it? Right. And the another which is a big factor is that we share so much of data with a third party, and once we disengage the third party, what we do it, because we have to delete that record, and privacy coming in, how do we maintain the supply chain, and then how do we manage the obligations, what are expected on behalf of customer. I think this becomes this is going to be a completely different domain on that.
True. Interesting. Now, how you mentioned about, the threats are continuously evolving, right? So how can organizations stay current on the cyber threat landscape? How can they keep themselves informed? How can they be, up to date with whatever the threats are they're facing on a day-to-day basis?
So, and all the CISOs do it, that because every business is different, like banking is different, telecom is different, health is different, e-commerce is different. From the business perspective first of all, we need to define that, okay, what is our business model and what is our risk criteria, what are relevant for our type of business, right? So that is one, we need to define the security roadmap and security objective. This is what every CISO does it, and every organization will be doing it. That is one. Second thing is that for once we have defined the objective, how do we achieve it, right? What are the technical controls, what are needed? What is the user education, what is needed? What are the people level controls, what we should be doing it? What is what is the level of measurement, effectiveness, what we measure it? And as a part of risk dashboard, because CISO position is the position which is giving the assurance of safety to internal stakeholders, to the board members, to regulators, and to the consumer also. The millions of customers what you have engaged, they're also taking the services from us, considering that our platforms are safe, right? And we are in the banking business, so in banking, whether banking or any other business, that is very, very important, that because while we are giving assurance to so many stakeholders, it becomes our responsibility to try and fall to their to meet the expectation what we have, right?
True.
So what we do is that we define what are our risk indicators, what are the critical risk indicators. We define what is the criticality of that, high, medium, low, and then based on that, obviously, every organization has a risk factor, and as soon as you find out a risk factor, how quickly you align with the business, you align with the technology, and you align with whichever the third party, accordingly we need to fit. We need to fit it. So this is a traditional model. I feel that every CISO. So I don't call CISO as a defender. I call CISO as a cyber warrior. So the way army has their own intelligence,
right?
CISO should also have his or her own intelligence and find out what is happening in the world, right? That's very important. So from technology perspective, we take threat intel, feed, and all other things, but those are very, very, very transactional threat intel feed. True. I feel that every CISO has the basic qualification CISO has is that how is your strong network which can help you to get that intelligence. For example, if there's any attack which has happened in US or New Zealand or UK, or any other country, any other geography, or any other industry, a CISO, again, every day there are 10 news, okay, and every news, if CISO start reading and going through in depth, okay, it's going to be very difficult, because then CISO doesn't have time to action it, right? But when I need it, what is relevant for me, that we should be able to get it. And we should have a network also to find out, okay, something is going wrong somewhere else, please look at it. Second thing is, if something is going wrong in my organization, which I might not have captured it, then I need to have that very close network good well-wishers to even call me and say that, Anuprita, something I've heard about it, please look into it. Right. That is point number 2. And third, the biggest skill what CISO should have is the influencing. Okay, because you have to influence the business, you have to influence the stakeholder, and you also have to, build a perception, which is also that, giving the assurance that, how safe you are. So this is also another, biggest skill, what CISO should be having it. So one is the traditional way, and on top of that, I think the way the cybersecurity is evolving, the threats are evolving. I think this is very, very important.
True. In fact, I also believe that the last 2 years has pushed the CISO role also into the boardroom to an extent, where CISOs are making a lot of bigger decisions.
Yeah. So yes, it's a blessing as well as it's an issue, because CISO has suddenly come into the focus. Right. And this is where everybody is asking CISO, and they actually, the bigger problem is that people think that CISO will change everything. CISO will ensure that everything is in place.
Right.
And many times, not in my case, but in my previous experience, or many times whenever we as an industry we speak about it,
right,
people ask a single question: are we safe or not?
Right. Okay?
And for CISO, you can't say that, yes, you're safe, right? Because today, even if you have 100 controls or 1,000 controls, there is 101 or 1,001 threat which might be lying somewhere and might just attack me sometime, right?
True.
So yeah, I think it's a double-edged sword, right? But yes, if we have a very good way of putting down things, one is that giving assurance is very, very important.
True.
And whatever the risks are there, it's very important to work with the businesses and the technology team, with the management team, and board is expecting a solution from a CISO, and which I feel is very, very important, because they still feel that security is not only to block the work, but security is the enabler, and for that we have to work on the solution with all the other stakeholders.
Absolutely.